Behind every rhinestone that glittered beneath the Opry lights, a rumor flickered like a hidden oil lamp, daring anyone to lift the shade. Tonight we're diving headfirst into the untamed legend of 19 queens who rattled Golden Age Nashville. Women whose voices cut through smoky bars, whose ambitions cracked glass ceilings, and whose secrets still hum beneath the stage floorboards. Barbara Mandrell knew how to blind the crowd. Sequins flashed, steel guitar screamed, and television households gobbled up her glossy variety show. Then came the night the limo slammed metal first into destiny. Bones shattered, headlines exploded, and a $10 million insurance clash made the gossip sheets sizzle. Fans whispered that only the indestructible could strut back in sky-high heels after tasting that much pain. While Barbara wrestled wreckage, Lynn Anderson arranged roses and thorns of her own. The Rose Garden darling rode crossover celebrity into Beverly Hills boutiques, but sirens soon outsang the jukebox. A late-night joyride ended with flashing lights, a DUI record, and the shocking footage of an alleged shoplifting spree that splashed her name across every supermarket tabloid. Glamour, it seemed, came with a gravity bill. Dottie West felt that bill in the most brutal currency. She had swapped gingham dresses for skin-tight dazzlers, chasing a Vegas-style rebirth. But a frantic rush to make the Opry curtain turned fatal when her car skidded off the ramp, tossing her dream of a comeback into the Tennessee twilight. Friends swear they can still hear the echo of her laughter backstage, asking for one more encore. Some stars, though, decide to vanish before the final bow. Bobby Gentry drifted onto the scene like a Delta siren, dropped Ode to Billy Joe, and cashed million-dollar checks. Just when the world begged for an encore, she walked out of a Vegas residency, slipped behind a curtain of magnolias, and never looked back. Decades later, journalists camp outside her gated retreat, hoping the breeze will carry a verse of explanation. Connie Smith was labeled the quiet sweetheart, yet a silent blaze always glimmered behind her smile. Audiences felt it when she lifted a note into the rafters, desire wrapped in Sunday lace. Rumors about secret health scares and emotional burnout sparked chatter, but she kept her sanctuary sealed, leaving fans to decode the fire in her gaze. If mystery intrigues, pure rebellion electrifies. Wanda Jackson growled rockabilly seduction, rolling hips that scandalized buttoned-up church committees. She toured with Presley, wore fringe louder than an engine, and confessed later that industry gatekeepers warned her to drop the fiery act or vanish. She chose louder amps instead. Tanya Tucker never waited for permission. At 13, she stormed the charts with a voice soaked in red dirt attitude. Soon she was smoking backstage, clinking glasses with road-hardened veterans, and tangling her heart with Glenn Campbell in a whirlwind that producers tried and failed to silence. Paparazzi feasted on their stormy hotel exits, while Tanya's raspy confessionals kept topping playlists. Lacey J. Dalton joined the ruckus with biker leather swagger. Her whiskey-smooth delivery carried tales of midnight highways, and she carved her name into male-dominated lineups by sheer force of grit. One critic joked that if an eagle could play rhythm guitar, it would sound like Lacey revving into a chorus. Chaos wasn't confined to stagecraft. It ripped through marriages and radio towers. Tammy Wynette seemed born to sing heartbreak, but her real-world dramas outpaced any lyric sheet. One night she staggered into a Nashville ER battered and terrified, claiming kidnappers had forced her at gunpoint onto the highway. Detectives mulled theories, rivals whispered hoax. Tammy only doubled down on sorrow-soaked ballads that rocketed to #1. Loretta Lynn fought wars with a pen. She slipped The Pill onto vinyl, celebrating birth control in a town where preachers still thundered about sin. Radio stations banned it, ministers raged, yet truck stops played the single on loop as women sneaked coins into dusty jukeboxes. Loretta shrugged, polished her crown, and wrote another truth bomb. Patsy Cline's power was so raw it felt prehistoric. She spoke her mind to executives, sparred with producers, and belted heartbreak anthems that rattled chandeliers. Friends say she laughed at bad omens before boarding the small plane that never reached home. The crash froze her legend in mid-flight, leaving questions swirling in every blue note that remains. Against that backdrop, Dolly Parton mastered the art of misdirection. While cynics stared at the big hair and hourglass silhouette, she negotiated publishing deals that would bankroll empires. Years later, she quietly wrote a 7-figure check to vaccine scientists, proving those rhinestones hid a strategic mind sharper than any rhinestone needle. June Carter Cash wielded wit like a switchblade. Long before Wedding Johnny, she cracked jokes so fast the Opry spotlight could barely keep up. Recent documentaries reveal just how fiercely she fought for credit on Ring of Fire, using humor to mask bruising legal showdowns and backstage politics. Jeannie C. Riley blasted hypocrisy wide open with Harper Valley PTA, marching into the CMA stage in a thigh-skimming mod dress that made traditionalists clutch their pearls. She didn't flinch when radio hosts sneered. She just fired back with another verse, turning suburban gossip into a feminist grenade. Skeeter Davis sweetened airwaves with angelic tones, yet bristled when authority crossed her line. During a live Opry broadcast, she criticized police brutality, igniting controversy that earned her a swift suspension. Years later, she returned triumphant, defiantly harmonizing the same haunting melodies. Long before hashtags, Kitty Wells sparked dialogue about double standards by crooning, "It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels." The hit got blacklisted, yet its echo freed generations to call out hypocrisy without apology. Whenever a newcomer sings unvarnished truth, Kitty's backbone hums in the subtext. Norma Jean swaggered onto the Porter Wagoner show with flirtatious confidence, turning heads so hard even stagehands blushed. Industry gossip spun tales of backstage chemistry that foreshadowed the drama about to erupt when Dolly stepped into the spotlight. Norma proved charisma could be weaponized, even if it cost her prime billing. Bonnie Guitar slipped behind the mixing board and quietly smashed the boys' club. Producing her own records, she manipulated reverb and steel licks until they bent precisely to her artistic will, charting success that told every doubter to check the credits twice. Sammy Smith whispered velvet heat into "Help Me Make It Through the Night," a plea so intimate DJs feared midnight scandal. The tune slid past censors anyway, lounging in smoky bars while couples locked eyes across labyrinths of neon reflections. Now step back and witness the pattern. Each woman took the rigid playbook handed to them by conservative gatekeepers and tore out the pages line by line. They risked careers, reputations, even personal safety to carve fresh territory for expression. Flashy outfits weren't just decorations. They were armor plating against an industry that demanded submission. Yet history has a sly habit of sanitizing rebellion. Decades later, new fans stream the hits without realizing battles fought to keep those tracks alive. The limo crashes, the stained police reports, the courtroom showdowns, those details fade while glossy reissues climb the charts. But if you lean close when vinyl spins, you can still hear the pulse of danger beneath each chord change. Imagine the smoke curling over a midnight diner on Music Row. A waitress hums Loretta's band anthem under her breath, unaware she's performing a once-forbidden act. Outside, neon signs flicker like sirens calling dreamers. The same glow that lured Wanda, Tanya, and Lacey into grueling tours filled with back-alley giggles and backstage tears. And modern crooners? They post selfies from tour buses equipped with espresso bars. Unaware Barbara Mandrell rehearsed harmonies while her leg remained wired in steel. They signed 6-figure brand deals while Dolly quietly funnels royalties into children's literacy programs. They tweet thanks for streaming milestones, seldom acknowledging the scratched 45s Kitty Wells sold from trunk shows in church parking lots. Occasionally, history rumbles. Someone rediscovers Skeeter's on-air protest and edits the clip to viral perfection. Hashtags ignite, commentators marvel, and new listeners realize rebellion isn't a recent invention but a torch passed down smoky halls. The women we celebrate tonight were striking matches long before social platforms made fire fashionable. Notice, too, how disappearances loom larger than scandals. Bobby Gentry's silence seduces precisely because it withholds resolution. In a world obsessed with oversharing, her locked gate feels like forbidden fruit. Rumor mills claim she writes under aliases, or that she cruises the Mississippi at dusk, scribbling lyrics for the waves alone to hear. The doubts keep her legend breathing. Meanwhile, tragedies still cast long shadows. Dottie West's final drive left skid marks on the collective memory of every touring artist who has sped down I-40 chasing curtain time. Patsy Cline's doomed flight haunts pilots each March when fans hold candlelight vigils at the crash site. These cautionary tales remind dreamers that the cost of glory can be measured in twisted steel and unanswered voicemails. Yet where pain struck, resilience roared louder. Tammy Wynette spun heartbreak into platinum, divorcing 3 times, yet finding eternal companionship with listeners nursing wounds of their own. Loretta Lynn outlived most critics, her feisty grin beaming from a ranch that doubled as feminist monument. June Carter Cash treated every spotlight as a playground, subverting expectations with a single mischievous quip. The common denominator is audacity. Audacity to belt a no-good cheating lover's name over AM frequencies. Audacity to parade in beaded dresses critics called immoral. Audacity to demand publishing rights, production credits, equitable pay, and respect as default rather than perk. Each bold move rewired the circuitry of country music, creating a soundboard modern stars now plug into effortlessly. Yet questions linger. If social media existed in 1968, would Jeannie C. Riley have tweeted her clapback at PTA scolds or let the guitar sting speak? Would Tanya have live-streamed tears after yet another tabloid ambush? Would Skeeter's police critique trend globally or vanish under algorithmic chokehold? Speculation is half the fun, but the tangible truth rests in vinyl grooves and yellowing headlines. When the last note fades, you might feel compelled to ask, have Nashville's gates finally swung open for every fearless storyteller, or do polished fences still hide unwritten rules? That inquiry keeps history alive, urging fans to dig deeper, artists to push harder, and institutions to stay honest. So crank the volume on a classic track tonight. Let Barbara's steel riff spark the air. Let Bobby's smoky Mississippi murmur wrap around you. Let Loretta's truth bombs detonate right in your living room. Hear the hum of rebellion, the echo of rhinestones, the pulse of women who gambled everything for a frontier shaped by their own voices. Then decide where you stand when the next taboo comes knocking, because someone, somewhere, is already tuning her guitar, itching to set tomorrow's stage on fire, and when she slides that final chord, it won't just echo in some neon honky-tonk, it will bounce across every screen you own, and that's history. Consider Barbara again, years after her wreck, sitting in a dressing room where stylists prep contestants half her age. Someone mentions auto-tune, and she laughs a throaty laugh, tapping the vintage Telecaster that still bears a dent from the accident. "Honey," she says, "if you can't bend a string hard enough to make the crowd gasp, no gadget will save you." The crew falls silent, realizing they're in the presence of royalty forged in real heat. Flash to Dottie West's grandchildren standing on the very ramp where the fatal crash began. They plant wildflowers, not roses, because she adored anything bold enough to bloom beside asphalt. One child strums a borrowed guitar, the strings wobbly but sincere, and tourists strolling the Opry lot pause to listen. Tragedy, reborn as tribute, catches them off guard. Somewhere on the Mississippi coast, locals swear they've seen Bobby Gentry at a mom-and-pop cafe near closing, sipping sweet tea behind oversized sunglasses. They claim she leaves a $100 tip folded into the menu. Whether myth or truth, the story spreads each summer, pulling pilgrims to dusty crossroads in hopes of hearing her hum a lost verse. Connie Smith now mentors younger singers, speaking softly, yet carrying enormous authority. She reminds them that restraint can seduce more than volume, and that the note you don't belt sometimes lingers longer than the one you do. Her advice floats across conference panels, whispered like a secret spell for authenticity. Wanda Jackson recently retired for the second, or is it third, time. Yet fans peek onto social media and catch her shaking maracas at a granddaughter's garage jam. The smartphone audio crackles, but the growl in her voice slices clear as moonshine, proof that rebellion may age but refuses to rust. Tanya Tucker posts a picture astride a custom pink Harley, captioned with a winking challenge to any cowboy brave enough to race. Minutes later, a vintage photo surfaces of her and Glenn Campbell, ashtray between them, smoke curling into low backstage lighting. The comment section erupts over whether nostalgia softens or inflames old scars. Tanya remains silent, letting the algorithms debate for her. Lacey J. Dalton headlines a biker rally charity gig and tells the audience to keep the rubber side down. She dedicates her encore to every woman who has rode shotgun through storms nobody else believed in, and engines roar approval, drowning any lingering doubt that country belongs only to squeaky clean narratives. Tammy Wynette's estate negotiates a streaming drama series. Screenwriters pore over court documents and depositions, arguing over whether to portray her alleged kidnapping as genuine terror or orchestrated publicity. They compromise by showing her bruises in soft focus, leaving the verdict to viewers who will binge the story in a single caffeine-fueled night. Loretta Lynn's ranch gates now welcome tourist buses with photo-friendly signage, yet the singer's handwritten notes still hang framed inside the studio. One reads, "Don't ever apologize for singing the truth." Influencers snap selfies beneath the quote, chasing likes while unknowingly reinforcing her prophecy. At a medical university lab, researchers reference Dolly Parton's vaccine donation during a lecture on philanthropic impact. A slide shows glittering stage shots beside white-coated scientists holding test tubes. Students laugh at the juxtaposition until the professor reminds them that creative genius and scientific progress thrive on the same spark: the courage to imagine different futures. June Carter Cash's grandson launches a podcast exploring her comedic legacy. He regretfully admits most younger listeners know her only as Johnny's wife. Each episode corrects that oversight, weaving archival jokes into modern banter, reviving the crackle of her stage patter so you can practically smell the sawdust floor. Jeannie C. Riley's wardrobe from the Harper Valley era recently toured museums. The miniskirts, once labeled scandalous, now appear almost conservative beside contemporary festival attire. Curators pose the question, did society move forward or did Jeannie simply expose an hypocrisy that always existed? Skeeter Davis's suspended broadcast resurfaced on streaming platforms, racking up millions of plays in days. Young viewers dissect every inflection, astonished that a singer dared risk her slot on the Opry for social commentary. They slice the audio into short-form clips, re-upload them with righteous hashtags, and thus Skeeter goes viral half a century late. Kitty Wells is honored in a lyric writing workshop where facilitators encourage students to pen reply songs to modern male hits that glamorize ghosting. Participants discover that the battle Kitty fought is not historical footnote but living conversation, and they write with fresh urgency. Norma Jean, now residing quietly in the Ozarks, receives fan letters addressed simply to the blonde bombshell. She opens them with trembling hands, reading confessions from aging viewers who felt seen for the first time when she winked at the camera in 1966. Impact echoes louder than airtime. Bonnie Guitar's production notes are digitized into a searchable archive. Aspirant engineers marvel at her meticulous handwriting, mic placements, echo times, even coffee preferences for the drummer. They realize the calm on her recordings disguised the precision of a mastermind. Sammy Smith's sultry anthem shows up in a gritty indie film. Millennials Shazam the track, tweet shock that such frank longing existed in 1970, and playlist streams surge. Permission roars across decades. Strip away tour buses, digital downloads, and paparazzi drones, and a through line emerges, vision paired with nerve. These women carried both in spades. They stared down critics who tried to tame their wardrobes, censor their lyrics, or exploit their vulnerabilities for cheap headlines. Instead, they weaponized every magazine cover, every rumor of late-night coke habits or cannabis haze, molding controversy into rocket fuel that launched them past the gates meant to hem them in. What lessons remain for modern dreamers clicking this video? First, polish is optional, but voice is non-negotiable. Second, dissent courted with artistry outlives shock for shock's sake. Third, privacy can be its own power move. Bobby proved that. Fourth, survival sometimes demands reinvention, as Barbara, Tanya, and Dolly know too well. Finally, unity matters. When Loretta fought radio bans, backstage whispers cheered her on. When Skeeter returned, peers lent instruments and applause. So the next time an aspiring performer laments a negative review, remind them that Dottie West smiled through bankruptcy while sewing her own stage gowns. When someone says the industry gatekeepers hold every key, point them toward Bonnie Guitar's handwritten console diagrams. When doubters claim audiences don't care about substance, cue Kitty Wells's reply, still pricking egos 7 decades later. Country music was never just trucks and heartache, it's a battleground of ideals, and these 19 gladiators carved their initials into every marble pillar, their stories laced together like barbed wire, prickly yet strangely beautiful against a pastoral horizon. If you felt the sting of any passage tonight, if a lyric suddenly carries new gravity, do more than stream the greatest hits. Dig up an interview, hunt for a live bootleg, share the backstory with someone who only knows the radio edit. Let the torch pass not by accident, but by intention. Because history has one more twist. Somewhere in a bedroom lined with tour posters, a kid is stringing a pawnshop guitar, wondering if her accent is too thick, her body too curvy, her opinions too sharp. She'll search online for girl country pioneer and land on names like Dolly and Loretta. If she scrolls long enough, she'll stumble into this very timeline of rebels, oddballs, and icons. That discovery might tilt her future just enough to keep her dream alive through the first heckle, the first rejection, the first dimly lit open mic where someone whispers, "She's too much trouble." When that happens, every backstage bruise, every courtroom battle, every whispered rumor about coke dust or cannabis smoke becomes currency traded forward, pain transmuted into possibility. The torch flares brighter, the melody reaches further, and the next chapter writes itself. So bookmark these women in your heart's playlist. Keep their daring alive each time you press play, each time you choose honesty over safety, each time you cheer an artist refusing to dim her light. And remember, Nashville's neon shines brightest when reflected off rhinestones sharpened by risk. The curtain's falling now, but the echo you feel isn't goodbye. It's an encore waiting for you to demand one more verse. Stories like these fuel future fire. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.